morning, everybody. Welcome to IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm Tex Homer, Eric Nalin, Tyler Horka. We're going to go position by position and talk about what's going on in camp. So it'll be a nice overview. Before we do that, head over to Inside Texas where you can get 75% off for new members. Perfect time to join. The guys have been killing it with content and insight. Check out Paul's book, 2026 Longhorn Football Prospectus, Thinking Texas Football. Season's almost here, guys. You need to read this preview. It's also on our opponents in the wider SEC, so let's get after it. Let's start with Arch Manning. It's been a fun week of Arch Manning. We're starting quarterback room, but we like the Texas media make a statement of like, yeah, he's doing pretty good. And then immediately Ohio State, A&M, OU are like, he's the worst in all this. So let's settle some nerves here and talk about what's actually happening and what that means. Tyler, you did a good piece to start. What are you thinking with Arch Manning real quick?
Yeah, I think we need to start with what you said about the overreaction because it is very loud. It's coming from, quite frankly, some teams that have not fared too well against Arch Manning. We saw Arch beat Oklahoma, beat Texas A&M, and those people that live in those places are just kind of going after the kid. And but to me, that kind of tells the whole story because now is the time to get him, right? Like if he's throwing interceptions in practice, it's, oh yeah, he stinks. What happens when he's taking care of the football at the Cotton Bowl and then at Kyle Field and they can't say anything? So they're saying it now, but this has less to do with those fan bases and more to do with Arch Manning. I do think we need to hammer home the point that when Steve Sarkisian gets in front of the media after a scrimmage and he says sloppy, uncharacteristic, inefficient, too many errors, we have to take him at his word because those things matter. And Arch did turn the ball over a little bit. The offense didn't play well. Defense beat the offense. So I think that's fine, though, in August. And I wrote another piece this morning to your point. I want to see Arch Manning in the game, and then I'm going to reserve judgment for that. I think our own Evan Veith said the same thing on social media as well. So it's not great right now, but that doesn't mean it's not good. Arch has been good in moments, and he had his moments even in that scrimmage. So to take away some big definitive statement on Arch Manning right now, especially for the negative, would be wrong.
Yeah. Eric, what are you thinking, man?
Yeah, I'm with that. It's just rivals are spinning up the fans, and then fans will see that their rivals are getting on them, and then that concerns them even more. Nobody wants to hear it from their rivals, but you have to separate yourself from the fact and fiction. Like I said on the board, and kind of what Tyler's saying here is that OU fans and A&M fans should be much more concerned about their quarterbacks throwing it to Texas defenders than Arch throwing it to Texas defenders. It doesn't matter for Arch. It actually helps make him better. He didn't have a huge touchdown, or he didn't have a poor touchdown to interception ratio last year with no offensive line, a much poor supporting cast, whether it's wide receivers, no run game. And he was still relatively protective of the football last year. So I'm not really worried about the interceptions. They're going to happen because he does have a playmaker mindset, but he wasn't particularly careless with the football last year. And as Drew Kelson said on the board, practice is when you're going to test your ability to fit windows and maybe make throws that you wouldn't normally throw in a game. So I'm not worried about Arch. I do have some questions like that are genuine questions. Like, is he actually noticeably better than last year, or is he picking up where he left off? If he's picking up where he left off, I want to know why that is. If he didn't grow this offseason, there's got to be a reason for it. I'd love to know what that is. But we don't know if that's the case. Let's see how he looks against Texas State, first and foremost. And unfortunately for a quarterback like Arch, you can tell things against a poor opponent, because we saw him miss some easy throws last year against the very mundane opponents. So hopefully we see him accurate on the short game. But practice isn't going to tell the full story on Arch. They're not using his legs. He's not scrambling to extend drives. He doesn't have a run game. The offensive line remains a work in progress, as we know. And there's a very good likelihood that they're going up against one of the best defenses in the country.
Also, I think there's this good point of us Texas media that like you're not getting total propaganda here, and every other school is used to like quarterback 17 touchdowns, they're untouchable. And so as soon as you hear like, yeah, he's having a pretty good camp, they're like, oh no. So it's also them getting kind of conditioned to just constant propaganda about quarterbacks. I actually think that's a point.
Yeah, they're redefining what we're saying is good. When we say he's good, he's good. We are grading him on a different scale. Somebody said you guys were more glorying about Shane Buechele. I was grading Shane Buechele on a true freshman grade, expecting him to start in a much simpler offense. I knew he was going to beat out Tyrone Swoops, and I was high on him. I was high on him relative to true freshman expectations because I knew he was a fit going into that offense, and I knew what they brought him in for was to start. So I was high on Shane Buechele relative to the expectations. Here, the expectations are already sky high for Arch. And like I said, he's not fully realized. He doesn't look like the first quarterback coming off the board yet, but we don't know what he's going to look like in late September or early October, whatever. I mean, he's got all the traits. He's just got to put together.
Cool.
I think one more thing is Drew Kelson makes another great point right there. It's cliche to say it's easier for the defense. The defense gets more wins in fall camp, but think about it from a true football perspective. Arch Manning is going up against the Texas defense right now. Will Muschamp is running his defense. He's trying to get his installs and all those different types of things. Wait until Arch Manning is going up against the scout team and they're running the Texas State defense and, Ohio State and those types of things. That's a more true test of a football hey, we have our game plan and they're trying to do their things. Bet you Arch starts looking pretty good in those situations. Right now, Will Muschamp kind of has his thing going on right now, and we have to take that into consideration as well.
Hey, speaking of Drew Kelson, it's so much easier for the defense as camp goes on. Well, guess what, Drew? You've got another comment coming right at the people here. Let me read it aloud. So this is our Drew Kelson. For anybody that doesn't know, national champion Drew Kelson, and he's speaking about his time in camp. This hits so many things that drive me crazy about how misunderstood practice and camp intel tends to be. It's not just the zero-sum aspect. It's that mistakes will happen at practice on both sides of the ball. You can't get better without them. I picked off Vince Young so many times in spring ball while playing DB. I was considered one of the 11 best defenders and was moved to linebacker. When fall camp started, I did the same thing at linebacker. Not a single person thought we'd struggle with Vince Young at quarterback due to the mistakes in practice. Likewise, no one projected me to be an All-American as a result. It's just the way the practice goes. And yes, I knew the offense and had seen every route combo a million times. It's definitely easier that way. I see this camp no different for Arch and the team. Iron sharpens iron. Everything they're grinding through right now against a Muschamp defense who clearly has an edge is fully a part of what's necessary to be great this season. There's still several hours, days left before being where we need to be. I trust we will max them out. Hard to argue there, man.
Yeah, a voice of sanity. Fans are always worried because they can't see with their own eyes. They're caught up in the moment. There's just a lot of fear, and when people are fearful, they start saying the most crazy things. Just they're too emotional, which you understand. The defense is going to be good. The offense is much better, just by virtue of the talent and then more experience. I'm not worried about it at all. We're just not going to say that he looks great when he hasn't looked great. Can't do it.
This is interesting. We never saw VY Magic at practice. So this is something, too, that we've kind of alluded to. It's like scrimmage is a different thing. Like Arch is not working with the full plethora of what he can do in his play style. Now, don't get me wrong. This season, I'm looking for Arch to play in the offense. I don't want a ton of hero ball. But still, there's a play style that Arch Manning employs, too, that's not necessarily clear in thudding or in a scrimmage.
Like I said on the board, there's going to be a game early in the season where he goes off and people are going, well, I thought he wasn't great, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be, well, he had 200 yards rushing from his running backs. He had the defense giving him short fields. He was able to run and use his legs. They called a run that got him loose for 50 yards or whatever, like we saw against Michigan, against A&M. You're right. They don't have the full menu, and they're not going to be going up against a defense that can telegraph their plays based by formation. So it's all overblown, and we're adding to the overblown. We're 10 minutes in and still talking about it.
Oh, yeah. But we need to, man. We need to. Because and I can tell the season's coming because now I'm starting to get these vague, mean comments, and I'm like, the rivals are showing up, man. At first, you're reading them like, is this a Texas fan? They sound like they hate Texas. And then at the end, you get your Boomer Sooner or whatever. But you can tell the season's drawing near, fellas. But I do want to talk about the other quarterbacks. We've heard some cool things about them. First things first, either one of you, what have you heard about KJ?
KJ's kind of been I was going to say, Eric's been the KJ guy, so I'll let him go.
Yeah, KJ's had a really good offseason. You got to give him his love. He's a second-team quarterback. They feel really confident with him. He can affect the whole playbook. As we said, he's confident to throw over the middle. A lot of younger guys don't want to do that. And then the problem with younger guys, a lot of them don't have the arm to go outside. So they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. But KJ's got a good arm, throws a good deep ball, has a lot of confidence, will throw it to a guy to allow him to make a play, but also will take off and run if he needs to. So he's a good player. I really want to see him. I just want to see him, in the right conditions.
Yeah. What about Dia? He stacked some practices. Seems like he's had a lot of growth this camp, going from clearly a true freshman to learning how to use the offense a little bit.
Just personally, I think that Dia's in like a great spot being the number 3. Like Texas has a really good thing going with Arch and then KJ as your top 2. Sometimes when you're a true freshman, you'll come in and you're forced into that number 2 spot all of a sudden. And it's like, man, I'm one play away from me having to go out there and do that. I don't think he's ready to, go lead Texas to 10 wins, maybe not even 9 wins type of thing, right? Like if Diabell was in the football game right now, Texas might lose a game because it had a true freshman playing quarterback, right? But he's the number 3. He gets to see it from 2 guys that have way more experience than he does. And then you get to the talent part, and Eric can speak to that, obviously, that it sounds like he's throwing the ball around very, very well. He's dropping dimes. He has the arm talent. That's the reason that Texas took him, and a lot of other people wanted him. And like that's going to grow with time as well once he gets that maturity and experience. So it sounds like a really good start to Diabell's college career.
Yeah, he's gone from a guy that's obviously talented in spring ball, showing the traits, and the guy that you recruited for a reason, having all that, but almost like a theoretical talent. Now he's starting to put it together and make plays in practice with a lot more consistency. The arm is showing off. The leadership, poise, intangibles, he had that. He was born with those. And if he wasn't born with them, his dad did a damn good job instilling them in him. So he comes from a really good home environment that kind of creates a quarterback mindset, mental toughness, but also a guy that can get along with everybody in the locker room. So he's got all the quarterback traits you look for, but the one thing that every player in the history of football needs is time under tension, experience. He's got to make his mistakes. He's better for the mistakes he makes. There's a lesson there maybe for another quarterback we just spent way too much time talking about.
So you can never talk too long about Arch, man. You could do an hour, dude, right now on Arch.
I am over it. But KJ's got all. I started comparing him to Arch early on from a trait standpoint, but also kind of the way he's wired, the way he's grown up.
Yeah.
He's a man of the people. A lot of those kids of famous athletes or come from famous families. They're shut-ins. They're more introverted. He's not like that at all. He's just one of the guys, and he's starting to make plays. He's got the arms, got the talent. I'm noticing which sites in the network are doing really well, like Tennessee with their quarterback controversy. They're doing really well. I'm like, I'm already thinking, golly, man, at least we're going to grow next year, because you can already see it if Arch leaves, that there's going to be a lot of talk about KJ and Diabell.
Yeah, quarterback battles in Texas, man, are synergistic for sure. All right, let's actually jump to offensive line next, because I want to make sure Tyler can talk about his piece he did on that, because he has to go to a presser here in a little bit. So let's talk offensive line before we get into the rest of the offensive skill here. Tyler, I'll let you take it away, man. You had an awesome piece on IT. Y'all should go read that.
Yeah, obviously, I think the offensive line, I didn't bury the lead. It's the hot button issue, right? There's a lot going on with it right now. And I think the first question that Steve Sarkisian fielded the other day was about the offensive line after the scrimmage, because there are a lot of moving parts and moving pieces going on, especially on the left side. Like, I get it when Steve Sarkisian says, like, you're never going to get through a fall camp without having to go through a little bit of adversity. Like, a guy comes out, somebody else has to come in. Andre Kojo has done that. He's stepping up there at left tackle. But how many teams across the country, especially a top 5 team like Texas, are dealing with 2 starters being out? And I get it, Lawrence Seymour's coming back today. Texas needs that, because that's part of the piece that you mentioned. What to like, what to dislike about the Texas offensive line now 12 days before the season starts. What to dislike is we're still having this left guard conversation, right? And Lawrence Seymour would have had an opportunity to really stake claim. Maybe we'd be calling him a surefire starter right now had he not been injured all last week, but he was, and he missed a lot of valuable reps. Those go to guys like Dylan Sikorsky and Cole Hudson and even Jackson Christian, who like can build off of those and develop because of them. But we're at a point in camp here where if Lawrence Seymour is your guy, and Eric's reporting it makes it sound like he is going to be, you want him healthy, you want him on the field, you want him getting those 1 reps. And the same goes for Trevor Gooseby. He's an All-American. He's going to be a first-round draft pick next year. So it's not like he is dying to develop in this particular fall camp. But if that's your guy at left tackle, and he is, you want him out there as well. You want him taking every single snap that he can for the betterment of the entire offensive line, and quite frankly, for the betterment of the team. And Steve Sarkisian said that as well. He's like, I hate it for Trevor because he's missing this time. I also hate it for our team because he's one of the 5 best football players on this team, probably one of the 2 or 3 best football players on this team, and he's standing on the sideline. And your team doesn't get better that way. So there's a lot going on with this Texas offensive line, but I will add at the end here that the right side seems pretty good, and that actually starts with Connor Robertson, who's having a good camp. Brandon Baker seems better for having moved to guard, and then Melvin Siani, we hear that he just loves moving people, and not only is he a good pass protector, he can do some things in the run game as well. So again, that's the whole impetus of that article, the good and the bad. That's with any position group, you have good and bad.
It could be any position besides left guard being unclear. Like you could say right guard was unclear and everybody would still, it'd be a little less anxiety. But the fact that it's left guard too with last season. Eric, any thoughts on offensive line?
Yeah, I love the Kojo development. That is big for the season. Tyler took a parcel out of our inside report last week and put it on Twitter, and everybody was jumping on that, even Texas fans. Yeah. I said that there was very little noticeable drop off between Gooseby and Kojo. It was just a couple practices, and again, practices do not accurately replicate games. Fans jumped all in that, got bookmarks and all this stuff. You guys are full of it. And then Sark comes in. There were a couple days last week where I didn't even notice he was out there in a good way. So I'm loving what Kojo's bringing to the table. That's huge for development this season, for depth this season, and long term. You want that guy to grow into a credible starter. And man, if you look at the minimal time he's been on the field, he does have the traits. You see the foot quickness at his size, and it's not super common. It's the same thing we noticed of him as a junior in high school. And you're like, man, he got a lot of reshaping to do in his body, but somehow he's got these really natural feet. I'm loving what I hear about him. It's a very big week for Lawrence Seymour. Sark said he's back to it 100%. We'll know a lot more about him tomorrow. Tomorrow is Tuesday. They're on their season grind, which is Bloody Tuesday, which means it's going to be a physical practice. We want to hear if he really is unleashed and going 100% back with the guards. It's a huge week for him. Not worried about Gooseby. He'll come back on a healthy timeline. I don't think he's going to come back rushed to the field. I think he's going to come back naturally right within the timeline of his health. And then, as Tyler said, we haven't heard much about the right side of the line. He included Connor Robertson there, I guess, because he's right-handed, maybe. But Connor is having a good camp. So, we've seen a couple clips of him moving well, locking on to linebackers, which I'm not sure we saw a whole lot of last year. I'm encouraged by the offensive line. Left guard is already better than it was last year. It's just guaranteed by any of the 3 that are in contention. I do wonder, and I have not ever gotten a good answer on this, of why Kojo doesn't play it.
Is that a good question for Sark today, Eric?
Yeah, that's a hell of a question. They're going to say, "Oh, Coach Floyd, it's probably going to talk about ankle flexion or something." But I think it is a good question. I'm very curious myself. I've wondered about this for a while, because it also would point to how big of the injury was it last year, because they weren't able to throw him at it. So Sark's in a catch-22 there on that. We'll see what he says, but he looks like he has the natural bend. Obviously, you have to play a little lower at guard. I think he can do it. So I'm curious why he's never been mentioned there, or maybe they just want him as that third tackle reps to stay there in case they do need him in a pinch. We've seen tackles have to come in recent years. Gooseby got his first playing time due to injuries to Kelvin Banks and then Cam Williams. So maybe they just want him as comfortable there as possible.
Well, it's the idea of and we talked a lot about this with Joe Rudolph when I was covering Notre Dame. He's big on give me my best 5, and I will put them out there. I don't care if Kojo projects more as a tackle. If he's one of my best 5, I'm playing him at left guard. But then you have to grapple with what you're saying. You want depth too. And what if one of the tackles goes down? But at that point, you just reshuffle it, right? That's when you move Kojo out back to tackle, and then you have all those guards that we're talking about. There's your depth, right? So he doesn't have to be the swing guy. He could be a starter.
They've said that in the past about getting their best 5 on there. And if Kojo, there's minimal noticeable drop-off between Gooseby and Kojo, then by virtue of that, Kojo's one of your 3 best probably, right?
Yeah.
I mean, get the dude on the field. So we'll see, man. I would love to hear about Seymour coming back. We're not going to hear about that yet because obviously Gooseby's out and it's a moot point, but I am curious if he does figure into that guard. I heard one practice where they tried him at guard and then I didn't hear it again. So to me, there's something there that they're not really fond of, and I'm not sure what it is.
All right. Before we keep going, let's hear a word from Academy.
It's going to be hard. Turn everyday spending into more fun. Earn unlimited 2% in rewards when you spend outside Academy. My Academy Rewards MasterCard, the official card of fun.
Is Eric's mic all good, y'all? It sounds louder to me, so let me know.
I had it a little further away, and we were in a mic check earlier, and I didn't hear any.
Yeah. So in the chat, just let us know if Eric still sounds quiet or if he sounds good to go. All right, let's move to running back. I'm personally most excited about this room because I just think we have I never can say this word right. Dynamicism.
Dynamism.
There we go. I was close. I was in the same area. But I think that's a huge difference from last year. But how have they been looking in scrimmage? What's the depth chart looking like there? What does each guy bring? I am glad from Hollywood that we're hearing that he's much more see yards, get yards. That's what it was on the tape. Somehow I got morphed into that he was this long runner and twitchy guy, which he has speed, but his skill was that he was really smart. And the NC State offensive line was atrocious. When I talk about he had to earn every single yard he got that season, that's an important factor too, that he can work in some hostile conditions at times. So thoughts on running back?
Well, I mean, this is a rough weekend to ask about that because I didn't hear a damn thing about him. Sark said there was no run game. We heard there's no run game. So it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Same as whatever I would have said Friday is what I'm saying now, other than they need more help up front or they need to go up against a different defense. The defense just shut down the run game entirely. I do think Smothers is more of a 2.0 Trey Wisner. He's got much more giddy up, but he's a tough guy. He runs hard. He will try to get the yards that are available, but he's got more ability to create. He's got more ability to exploit and take advantage of a lane. Go back to that A&M carry that Wisner has. There's a lot of running backs that take that to the house, that one where he breaks out in the open. He gets walked down. That's not going to happen to Smothers. And I do think that there is a little bit more dynamism to Hollywood Smothers than Homer's giving him credit for. I do think he is, first and foremost, see yards, get yards. But there's some ability to create, bounce outside, and use some speed.
Well, he had to because the offensive line didn't exist on the interior, so he got bounced out. So we'll see if that's the case for us. I'm not saying that he's not fast. I'm saying that's not the trait that stands out on tape. The trait that stands out on tape is that he's smart and does
speed is always overrated unless it's your defining trait like a Jaden Blue, in which it has to have. You have to have it. If you're Chris Johnson, you have to have it. Jamal Charles had to have it. If it's your defining trait, then it's extremely important, and your career's over with once you lose it. It's nice to have, but that was the one knock on Bijan Robinson. And some of these knocks are stupid. Kevin Durant can't bench 185. It doesn't matter, man. Quickness to and through the hole first and foremost, and then it's nice to have speed once you're there. But there's so many things that are important before you even get to that. We don't even talk about vision enough. Vision is very important. Feet, lateral agility, contact balance, all those things he has, and then he has good speed. But speed is always overrated by fans. It's like hitting hard. Fans just love the highlight, but he's got all the stuff that's more important.
All right, what about Raleek, Tyler? What have you seen throughout your camp?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the things that Eric just said about Hollywood Smothers, you could say about Raleek Brown too, like the contact balance stuff. I think he has good vision. I wish I would have bookmarked this. I saw it on Twitter the other day. I can't remember the exact context, but there's something about 20-plus yard runs last season. Maybe it was among power conference players. Raleek Brown had 9 or 10, and he was toward the top, if not at the top of the list in terms of returning power forward running backs. So he's got the home run threat, the home run ability. I do think Hollywood Smothers has more of that than it's a weird thing with Hollywood Smothers where everyone was like, oh yeah, he's so dynamic and that's all we're going to talk about. And then we get into camp here and it's like, no, it's the trustworthy stuff. It's he does all the little things right and whatnot. But to Eric's point again, he could break one for a touchdown as well. He has that in his game. So I think that Texas at the top has two game breakers that the Longhorns didn't have last season. You trusted Trey Wisner and that was great. And that's the reason you invested so many reps. But was he ever going to break the game for you? Probably not, unless he's playing Texas A&M or Oklahoma.
Right.
But these two guys are going to break the game. They're going to look to break the game at any point in time. And Smothers may be more patient with it, but once Raleek Brown goes out there, he that's his first carry to be an 80-yard touchdown, and he has that ability. So, yeah, these guys are dynamic to both of y'all's point. And Texas knew if you want to be a national championship type team and Steve Sarkisian's this offensive mind, you better have running backs to work with. Like, I bet you he misses Bijan Robinson every day, but who wouldn't? Because that was fun when you just were able to give that guy the ball. It's going to be fun when you give these two guys the ball, because I think they're much better running backs than Texas had last year.
I got a question for the press conference. You don't need to ask it because it's not very sexy, but someone does need to ask about running back pass blocking at some point in camp, because that's a huge leak that like I haven't heard about and I'm curious about. But it's on the list of cool things to ask about. It's like number 10, but it in season that's going to matter. And then we'll see if the third guy who I'm going to bring up here is able to do that. What have you guys heard about Cooper, the freshman, dude?
Yeah, I thought you were going to go with Michael Terry.
Michael Terry.
That was fun.
Yeah. I did not go with Michael Terry, but yeah, what Cooper? How has his growth been, and then what does he bring to the team, Eric?
Good, physical, fast. He's trying to break one too. Yeah, he's not just in there for his size and moving the line of scrimmage forward. He wants to break one. He's got the speed, physicality, and it is a good change of pace between the other two that we talked about. Those guys are not one for one twins, but they're cousins, you know. And then you got Cooper that comes in, and he's a lot different. So, and he's reliable. I think Biles said something like. He's almost like Hollywood Smothers in that he's a 3-down back. You can trust him with anything.
That's
and
great.
That ties in a bit to what you're wondering about with pass pro. Now, it's always scary with a true freshman pass pro because there's simply looks that he's never seen in practice before or whatever. He's going to be adjusting on the fly. But he is the guy that they really like there because of his size and physicality, of course. But a lot of that we've talked about before is awareness. But he has that. For Biles to say that about him, that's a huge compliment, and that it says what we've heard about in the past, going back to January and then spring. They think he's the most advanced running back they've had at this stage of anybody.
Since
pretty much every single practice.
Well, they didn't have Bijan. They didn't have Bijan as a true freshman, right?
Oh yeah, they didn't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good point. But I was like, dude, if there's anything better than Bijan, let's ride, baby. Horka, were you gonna say something?
It seems like every single time Eric puts out a practice report, Derek Cooper is mentioned. And then Steve Sarkisian in the public goes out of his way to mention him, you know, when he's doing his little laundry list of, hey, let me recall everything that happened in this scrimmage or this practice. Derek Cooper comes up and says, yeah, he was running hard. He was running physical. We like what we see out of him. So that's from the top. And you know, and then Eric has his sources, and it's coming from those people as well. So what's not to like, right? When everyone, including the head coach of your program, is saying, yeah, this is a dude, that's probably a dude.
Yeah, and Texas has been really good about when they name their dudes in camp that coming to fruition. Eric, really quick, legally, we have to talk about Michael Terry. How might we see Michael Terry on the field?
It could be short yardage. Now we don't know. Some guy short yardage to me is a feel thing. It's a vision is extremely important there too. But you know, some big backs are great. Cody Johnson at Texas was famously great for it. 3 touchdowns in the 2008 Red River Shootout, but he was good at it throughout his whole career. Never got negative yardage. They think Terry's a guy that can help them there, and also, you know, they wouldn't mind throwing to him out of the backfield either. So I do think we'll see him a little bit this season. I'm still trying to get clarification on how much, but he is featuring in practice a little bit more. That's the thing. Fans are always asking about guys. It seems like, you know, we'll get Khalil Lockett. You know, I'll start talking about Lockett when he starts making a few more plays in a way that tells me he's going to get on the field soon. Well, Michael Terry, as of about a week ago, started making a little bit more noise, you know, where we're now watching him to get reps on the field this season.
All right. Y'all want to do tight end or wide receiver? Choose your own adventure.
Gee, we always spend way more time on offense. We got the number 1 defense maybe in the country coming up to talk about. Yeah. You're over here. Let's talk about
talk to the fans.
Let's talk about Charlie Jilick.
I was going to say, you wait until you put out a defense video and your views are automatically 40% less. So that's not me choosing that. I would talk defense more, but just for whatever reason, offense is sexier to the viewer. But we're not going to skip wide receiver and tight end. Come on, man.
And my son's the same way. I got him a Will Anderson jersey for the Texans. He's like 51.
I don't know what it is, but even with my Texas Homer channel, I'd break it down offense and defense, and always defense would be like 40% less. All right, let's talk tight end. I will make the decision here.
All right.
And I want to be able to talk about Nick Townsend. I know Eric would enjoy doing that as well. Erica, what have you heard of Nick lately?
Yeah, showing some growth. What we want to hear. He's basically the lead tight end. We know Spencer Shannon's done well. I think they complement each other well. But Nick is getting a little more consistent as a blocker. Obviously, he's dangerous out in space as a receiver. But I think blocking and speaking of things that are not sexy, tight end blocking is not sexy. Everybody wants to see Jatavian Sanders running down the middle of the field like he did against Alabama. But I think there's a place.
Did he freeze up for you, Tyler?
Yeah, it looks like he's frozen.
All right, we got him frozen. I'll let him know. Tyler.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see if we get him back. We lost you for a second, Eric. Can you take that back?
I was just talking about the secret play they're going to run against OU with Nick Townsend.
Just real quick, bullet points. What has Nick Townsend shown in the past couple weeks?
Just improved consistency in the blocking game, and I think that's going to be a very important factor, what he brings to the field this year. Yes, he's going to get open in the field. It's going to be really exciting when you see that big old guy running 10-9 down the field. But blocking, I think, is going to be the biggest, the most important facet of the tight end room this year is going to be blocking, in my estimation.
Cool. Any word on Shannon or Masunis, how they factor into 12 personnel or anything like that?
Yeah, I think Nick and Shannon complement each other perfectly for that inline sort of, and then you got the guy that moves around in Townsend. I think it's going to be good from a blocking standpoint. Maybe not great, and I know if you hear good, you think meh, but it's I think it's going to be good, like literally the definition of the word good. Might be a little bit of work in progress though, because Shannon has not played a ton. He played a little bit last year, and then Nick Townsend is still relatively young. It's a position that I think is going to be a lot better in October and November than in September.
Awesome. Let's go to wide receiver. Tyler, what are the big storylines there for you?
I mean, it was another scrimmage where we want to talk about how poorly the offense played, right? Because that's all anyone seems to care about is like, why is that the case? And then Steve Sarkisian drops on us that Emmett Mosley had 2 touchdowns and Ryan Wingo had another touchdown. That's, he's 2 for 2 in terms of scoring in these scrimmages. So there's good things happening at the top of the wide receiver unit. And then, we reported at Inside Texas that Jermaine Bishop went off, and that was Friday's practice, right? It was at the practice before the scrimmage. And then what's he do in the scrimmage? He scores a touchdown. So more and more, I think he's ascending to a point where he's just so uberly talented and unique in terms of his skill set that maybe he is that fourth guy, that first guy that you bring in there, because he gives you a different look than Emmett Mosley as well. But it definitely starts with Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo, and then obviously Emmett Mosley. Like the top 3, I've said it multiple times, I don't think you take a lot of other teams' top 3s over what Texas has at wide receiver. And then it's almost like all the young talent is like disguised by those guys, because here at Texas, we're talking about Jermaine Bishop because we know the recruit that he was, and we see him in fall camp and we hear about him, and he's doing very well. But across the country, I think people look at the Texas wide receivers and they're like, okay, yeah, it's Coleman, Wingo, and Mosley, but like, let's just lock in on those guys and we'll be fine. Well, Dalen McCutcheon might have something to say about that. Jermaine Bishop as well. Eric mentioned Khalil Lockett earlier. Cohen Brown, probably not this year it's going to happen for him, but man, does he look good in fall camp in terms of just like show up, watch him run a route, catch the ball. You're like, yeah, that's a Texas wide receiver. So I think the room is stacked. And it's part of the reason why the Texas offense is going to be better this year, is just because there's so many weapons for opposing teams to worry about.
The versatility too, man. Just the option to have Coleman, Mosley, and Wingo. They all bring something different but dangerous. And then, of course, whenever you see Batman show up on the field, something bad's about to happen. So it's also that they're not all the same receiver. And we've ran into that a couple times where if a defense is good at stopping this style, it can kind of stop. But there's different options and different guys to go to. Any final thoughts on wide receiver, Eric, before we get to the Texas defense?
Yeah, I'll say some colleges are just so exploitable on the perimeter that you're going to win. We've seen Wingo basically will Texas to some victories just because teams are softer on the perimeter. That's a huge advantage. And then another one is you've got sort of the thunder and lightning combination between Mosley and Bishop at slot receiver, where they like it's just a totally different look that you're going to get from Mosley than you will from Bishop. And safeties better be highly aware of who's in the game. at the same time, you're going to build tendencies with Mosley's physical blocking nature, but then you're going to hear him run a slant and go, and it's going to catch people napping too. So Sark's got a lot of different tools, like you said, different ways to use them, and then exploiting your own tendency is a huge matchup advantage that Sark has for him.
All right, everybody, we're going to talk defense next, but Tyler, get on out of here, man. Go make us proud at the press conference. But let's hear a word from Andre.
Yeah.
Texans know
about
when you're
Pedro
injured,
Brandon.
there's one name that gets results: Andre the Lawyer. Trust the team that has secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans win their injury cases. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, wrongful deaths. Don't let the insurance companies tell you what your claim is worth. Andre the Lawyer will fight for you. His principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait. Call 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. Contact info is in the description.
Defense. Let's start with interior defensive line. Eric, they're going to be good at football too, man. That was a big thing from the run defense in the scrimmage too, because I was like, at first I was like, I hear interception, so I'm like, was it the pass rush wilting? And that's going. They were like, no, man, they were shutting them down on the interior. So what's going on there?
Yeah, well, I asked how they stopped the run game, and I got a 2-word response: Will Muschamp. So he's just got his guys ready to run through a brick wall for him. Maybe the story of camp for me is Murad Watson. He's playing a lot. He's at nose tackle. He's been good. He's mentioned consistently. He's one of those guys that's had a really good offseason pretty much from start to now. I'm really excited to see him play, even though I know it's going to be, to me, I think he's got a chance to be a darling of the all 22. It's not somebody you're going to be watching in the middle of the game. But when we break down film and see, hey, how did Biles have such a clean shot there? Or how did that twist work so well? I think Murad Watson's going to be in the middle a lot of it, assuming what we're hearing holds to the season. So I'm really excited about that. And then, everybody else we kind of just talked about a lot. Justice Terry's an entirely different type of guy. You compare Justice Terry with Murad Watson, and that works perfectly to me. Or put him with Ian Graffard, those space eaters that occupy blockers. And then, Terry's got that explosiveness and that ability to wrap around and get in the backfield in a hurry. But just the amount of versatility they have there as well. And then the amount of bodies, everybody playing 30 snaps. A guy playing 30 snaps is so much better than somebody on their 50th snap.
We can talk about that without even mentioning January and Canoe. And so it's just like really impressed with the interior defensive line, the coaching they receive by Baker too. I try to shout it out every time I can. I absolutely love what I see from that room, and just hear they're growing is awesome. Any final thoughts there? Are you ready to go to the edges?
Texas has been really good in goal line situations on defense, and that's another thing that should carry through, because you can put easily 3 D tackles out there, 4 D tackles. Justice Terry could play defensive end in goal line situations. So I think they're going to hold up in that regard as well.
Yeah, top 3 in the nation and like goal line stands and 4th down, 3rd downs. Like that was. It always seems like when we needed it there, we almost always got it, man.
Yep. I think that's going to continue.
Awesome. All right. Edge, man. So Colin Simmons is good. We expect him that to continue. We rarely talk about Simmons because it's such a no-brainer there. Had to be pulled out of practices before too for destroying the game. If you have anything on Colin, but really I want to talk about Zena and Lance.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot about Zena. Obviously, Colin's Colin. It's like asking about Michael Jordan after a practice. It's if he didn't have a good practice, well, you still don't care. And if he had a great practice, it's old news. So whatever, man.
Yeah.
Zena to me is a guy that's probably not getting enough love or enough notoriety. We talk about him all the time, but it just, I never see fans really asking about him or talking about him. He's really, really talented. Got the length that everybody loves. He's got the physicality. He's still a good pass rusher, just a very versatile D lineman that can play up and down. They're going to use him like they used Ethan Burke. Shout out to Ethan Burke for that game he had the other day, justifying our belief in him that he should have been drafted. Not
getting drafted made no sense. Not just from a Texas fan point of view, but like from a scout point of view. I was like, what? They find a murder charge on? Like it made no sense, man.
The one thing that I pointed out incessantly about him was his elite shuttle time. You don't see guys that size with his type of shuttle and they just go undrafted. And he had good tape too. I'll never understand it.
Yeah.
But Zena obviously can fill some of that void left by Burke. Play down the line. We talked about him out there in that pass rush look where he's a D tackle. I'm really excited to see Zena play this year. He looked good last year in his snaps. He's gonna play a lot more this season. You got Lance right there. Everybody feels great about him. It's interesting to hear that Lance is probably a better pass rusher than Zena, and Zena is actually more physical. That kind of is a contradiction of what I would have thought. And then Richard Wesley, he's going to play a ton. I want to see him. They had some alignments with him that don't play well to me. Like I don't see him playing 4-eye early in his career. Because it's not just the size and strength, it's about the awareness of understanding where blocking's coming from, and you could get washed down real easy if you don't fight through it. So I do have a bit of a concern there, but they love what they have in him. But he's a guy that you want outside the alignment.
Players mentioned him a bunch. Colin Simmons on the presser last week said he could be better than me. So a lot of and Colin doesn't lack confidence. So to hear
there's zero chance he's going to be better than Colin as the pass rusher, but I think he's going to be every bit as good as Colin playing the run eventually.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that's extremely mature, and he's very popular in the locker room. I'm not surprised to hear his teammates talking about him.
He's just got to learn to strike stuff. That's the key.
Yeah,
that's the key. You just got to learn to strike stuff.
Just do
those elite athletes. That's the calculation is just like F it, and it completely works.
That's something Jordan would say, right? And that's why Jordan can never be like a head coach. You just go do what I do, man. Fade away from 20 feet.
It was just him and Arch being like, you know what, F it, and then you see what happens after that. Other people need to kind of work technique and stuff like that. All right, cool. You ready to move on to linebacker? I'm sure this will be a fun one.
I think it will be a fun one.
On the top half, it'll be a fun one. So first things first, Biles has had an awesome camp. Was out a little bit, but we've heard awesome things about him repeatedly over and over again. I'm not surprised. I went out on a limb immediately with Biles to start talking about how good he was going to be, instant starter, and he's a playmaker. So to hear those things is reassuring.
Biles and Bo Matsko, two guys I just don't think are going to come off the field much. They love him in any situation. If they go to dime, Biles isn't the linebacker they're pulling off the field, obviously. They love blitzing him. They like playing him in space. They think he's good against a traditional run game. He's everything they hoped they were getting and probably more. He's more than look, I saw the highlights, fell in love with the guy, had some questions about him still, and I love everything I've heard about him. I'm really excited to see him play. And then Justin Cryer, he's probably going to make us look wrong. A couple of these guys, I love it. I love being made to look wrong because it means the team is better than I anticipated. Justin Cryer seems like a guy that, first of all, he's another guy that's extremely popular. I don't want to say coach on the field necessarily because I think he is more talented than that. But when you hear that, it's normally a slight, a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
But he does do a lot of that coach on the field stuff, the steadying hand, the steadying voice. He works with the younger guys a lot, but he's also just a good player. But he's one you want just playing within his strengths between the tackles as much as possible. Depth is just where it gets. Depth is the concern. Against Ohio State, as long as nobody gets hurt, we're probably not going to see a whole lot of linebackers outside of the two I just mentioned. They're going to have to manufacture depth on the fly. Some of those young guys aren't quite ready. Rocky Cummings just missed the scrimmage. That doesn't help his development. Atkinson is coming along, but it's a tough position to play. He's very talented, high motor, high effort guy, does all the work behind the scenes. If I'm them, I would probably move Jordan Johnson-Rebel there just to, he's really good at hunting run fits. That's his strength as a safety. He practiced there at during bowl games, I think, during the bowl practice against Michigan. So he's got some looks there, and I think they've looked at him as like a dime backer, kind of like what they did with Jahdae Barron in the past. He's never actually played there, but he's at least got some reps, and they think he can find run fits. I would look at that. They need to manufacture more depth in the event of something really bad happens.
Yeah, that's why I was worried about the depth in the offseason, because just the unexpected, when you just have three, something weird can happen. Yep. And so if your plan is, if everything goes perfect with these three, we're good. Sure, but weird stuff can happen, as we've seen. And so it's like I've been on an emotional roller coaster. I was pissed about linebacker, and then I was like, I was feeling better, and then now I'm kind of like halfway in the middle. I really like what I'm hearing about Cryer and Biles, but I think we missed the mark on getting proper depth there. Clearly,
Brad Spence is Brad Spence his best position by far, Sam, and you always want to play guys in their best position. It's undoubtedly Sam for him. He can He can play Mike. He's repped Will. Kosi Okpala, I think for this season, I'm not sure that is his best position long term because he seems like he's much more natural in his movement than I
Got
thought.
that big.
Kosi Okpala, yeah. When you see those big muscled up guys, it scares me as far from a movement standpoint. But Kosi's a natural mover, but he's still a true freshman. So they've got a manufactured depth. I would go with JJR just because Jonah is coming on. Jonah's going to play a ton at boundary safety. And if nothing else, I know that Jordan Johnson-Robel will throw his body in there like a stick in the spokes. He might get run over by a guard. I don't know, but he's going to try to cause a pileup at least.
Yeah, he is physical. I haven't even thought about that as a potentiality. So that's interesting.
You got to manufacture depth somehow, and I'm not sure what they're going to do. I don't think they're 100% comfortable throwing the true freshman out there yet. Now, obviously, we're talking about two different things. If it's Texas State or UTSA, you're going to get away with it. But even Tennessee, you gotta have depth figured out by Tennessee, and you got to hope that Cryer and Biles can give you 50, 60 snaps. Another thing is going to dime a lot more often. Anything over 3rd and 5, you're going to feel happy going to dime probably.
Yeah. Because you can just have one linebacker on the field. It was funny. This Texas State fan was trying to do a breakdown of Texas on like how could Texas State win, and he knows they're not going to win, but he was being fair, and fans jumped all over him. But he was like, we need to at least try to target the linebackers, and I was like, yeah, that's what you have to do. Like it's not going to work, but it's like he's not wrong that like that's what you would pick on.
I'm wondering how that game's going to go. I don't think it's going to be. I was wondering what the line was. I don't, I'm not much of a trader, but I don't think that game is going to be some massive blowout. I don't know. I think there's going to be some big plays from Texas, but I don't think.
I think Kenny is gonna. I think Kenny's gonna have like 4 or 5 moments where you're like, nice play. I think that's what he's plotting on.
Yeah.
Because Kenny's a Texas guy too. Not for this week with Texas State, but he's a good play designer. They have a fun offense. He's going to break the defense's rules at some point.
Yeah.
But is it going to be enough? No, it's not. All right. So linebacker, definitely questions there once we get past the depth. But I do think the dime point is really important there. And then we might even force dime more than we would on average.
Which would not be a bad thing.
Yeah. We have the pass rush.
You've got run fitting safeties that are going to help you there. Right. 3rd and 5 is a little tricky because you will see some draw plays and they'll test your run soundness. But run support safeties help that a lot. The safeties are already used to run support. You've got bigger guys that can do it. I mean, if you've got Jelani and Jonah out there as your run fit safeties, those are quasi linebackers. Hell, Jelani was originally recruited as a linebacker, and Jonah didn't like Texas originally because they were looking at him at linebacker. So, there's ways to work around it, but they do. First and foremost, they need to manufacture some more depth.
Absolutely. Let's talk safeties because you brought them up. What's going on there? We know Jelani, we're very excited about, freak athlete. I think the intrigue is more like, hey, what's going on with Williams and Kobe and Jonah, like the past Jelani, what's going on?
Well, those are your 4. And Derek Williams. So that was kind of a game changer for me was hearing Williams at field, which is what you would think on just by looking at the skill sets. But he worked in the boundary a lot too. So that was kind of throwing me for a loop. Now hearing him at field makes a lot of sense. That opens up a really serious competition with Kobe Black. And they are in a competition. I think Williams is going to hold on to start the season. He's got the experience. You got Ohio State coming to town. Williams has been on the field against them. At least I think he has. He was hurt in 2024. I'm not sure. Either way, he's got the experience advantage over Kobe. So I do think that helps him early in the season, but as the season wears on, it might be a pretty even timeshare. Now, it doesn't really matter entirely because all 4 safeties are going to play a lot. And then you've also got dime where Kobe comes on a dime, so he's going to play there as well. And you also have dime where Jonah can come on. So I like what I'm hearing. We're probably not talking enough about Jonah now. I was tempering the talk on him. Let him just develop. He hasn't had time to develop. There's absolutely zero to worry about with this guy other than time. And now he's getting that time, and now he's doing what we always knew he would do.
Yeah. I love the idea of Kobe Black and dime because the argument with dime always is like, well, do you want a safety or a corner? And it's like done both with Kobe. So that's a really solid play. All right. Corners, you mentioned Masco not likely to come off the field. He's been one of the best quiet, for whatever reason, additions we've had. But man, that was a huge play. I don't think we realize how big that was yet.
And he is going to come off the field, but in every package that they have, he's on the field, right? So they'll substitute him within the run of play, whatever, nickel. But he's, even if, no matter what package they have him on the play, they have him in the middle of things, right? If they go to dime, or if they go to that third and long package, they like him at nickel a lot of times. So he's not coming off the field. Very good player, physical, probably the smallest cornerback, but also the most physical. Right. Warren's more physical, but Mascos tends to show up more on the field, at least lately, because he's just a playmaker. Yeah, they love him there. He plays to the field more. Cade plays to the boundary. Excuse me. When Warren Roberson comes on, he goes to the boundary, Cade goes to the field. So they've got a really good little triumvirate there with those three. And then, haven't heard as much about Smoke Matthews playing a lot. He will play, but they like their top three. And if you go back to that really stellar 2024 cornerback room, they went 3 deep there with Gavin Newsom as the third guy, and they were really good. So I think they're going to focus on those 3 for the most part, and then mix in Smoke when they get a chance.
You need 3 to be at that high tier. And it looks like we got it. That's exciting. All right. And then the nickel position, a lot of movement behind Littleton too. So what's going on there?
Yeah, they've got, Wardell Mack is back at cornerback. I guess I should have thrown that there in the cornerback situation. Yeah, so you got Grayson having a really, really good camp. Really good camp. He was kind of a known, and then he did have a quiet spring. We were just letting him get used to, that earful he was getting every day from Will Muschamp. And it's gone a long way. They've really, I'm not saying they had to test his physicality, but make sure that he measures up to the physical nature that they want at that position. It's a little bit different than playing it in previous years. And yeah, he's responded really well. He's had a really, really good camp. They love what they're getting out of him. They have Xavier Filsamy there as well, and then Jonathan Cunningham. They're both still at star. We'll see how much Cunningham plays. Cunningham's kind of like JJR, and they're like, oh man, he's physical. How do we get this guy involved more? And he's working hard. So we'll see what comes of that. But Littleton is going to be your main guy out there, and then we'll see how much Filsamy plays.
Yeah, did we say Gavin Holmes at corner? I think we did say Newsom for whatever reason. When we were talking about
that secondary was that good. Got away with Gavin Newsom out there.
Yeah. So overall, but what we've just been hearing is the defense is something different, both in kind of like temperament, aggression, but also the players have talked about it repeatedly in their pressers. That it's just different with Muschamp, and then you'll hear these kind of things that allude to maybe, PK was more of this schematic guy, but wasn't really rah or a huge motivator, I guess. And so players constantly talk about Muschamp's energy that he brings, and that you do not want to mess up in front of Muschamp because there will be consequences.
Yeah, they don't want to upset him, or they don't want to let him down. PK is there's a lot of respect in the program for PK. But he's viewed more as a play caller, and Muschamp is a play caller, but also a master motivator. Yeah, he really goes out of his way to build relationships. PK just doesn't have the personality that a lot of these kids are looking for or gravitating towards. They do want to have a relationship, at least to some degree, with the head coach, and it's very important. You have to have the buy-in, especially when you coach hard. You have to have buy-in. Guys that coach hard that don't have relationships with players, the players end up tuning them out. You end up having issues in the locker room. Muschamp, the first thing he did was start building a relationship. He's genuine. He's consistent. He's fair. And the players gravitate towards that. It's like, everybody has their dad that's hard on them, or, there's different types of dads. The ones that are, their dad are hard on them, you at least respect them. And that's what, Muschamp's not there to be loved. He's there to be respected, and they do respect him. They don't want to let him down. And, it sounds to me exactly like what we learned about his first time at Texas, where they do want to run through a brick wall for him. But that only matters if they're coached up well, and it sounds like they're coached up well too.
Yeah, it's the difference. You can be hard on them if you're genuine in other ways. Like Brian Kelly, it didn't work because he was just mean, and then everyone hates you. But you need to be intense while also being reasonable. So they probably get to see podcast Muschamp a little bit. The bookish glasses on Muschamp. He's more chilled out. He said in interviews that people expect him to be like that at restaurants and like all these guys. I'm not always yelling and screaming.
Yeah, it's
All
like
right.
it's like the character actor. You know, you go up to
Yeah.
James Gandolfini and you can't separate him from Tony Soprano. I think Muschamp's a victim of that too.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So this week they're doing kind of game mock, right? Like they're practicing at the same times. They're trying to get mentally in that space because next week is game
Yeah,
week, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Monday's a lighter day, more of a cerebral day. You know, they'll go over some mistakes from the scrimmage. Normally, that would be from the previous game. They'll work on corrections, and then Tuesday they get right to cracking heads with Bloody Tuesday. It's the most physical practice of the week. Gives them a bridge between the last game and the next game. And then Wednesday's still in pads, I think, or half pads. It's still physical, but not as much. And then you start saving them going into later in the week. It's not as physically demanding. So yeah, that's what they're going to do this week and next week, and then it's time to go.
So do we see, from your experience, do we see these battles start to clarify this week or next week, or do you expect a lot of these are going to be kind of win your job through the season, like safety or number 2 safety and stuff like that? Left guard.
The coaches already have a very good idea. You know, we were trying to figure out safety rotation. Well, Jonah kind of put an end to that, and then Kobe's. You know, they're still competing for starting, but they know that they've got 4 guys that could play at safety, so that's kind of done. The big issue there is unresolved business at left guard. Obviously, with Seymour being out, they've got some options that they're still contemplating there. So these next couple of weeks are big for that. And then again, manufacturing depth at linebacker. But they know what they've got with wide receivers, and in fact, Jermaine Bishop is coming on right on time for them to justify their plan to play him early. Same thing goes with Derek Cooper. I think the rotations kind of crystallized in a lot of places, but due to the nature of camp, in some regards, the loss of Ty Anthony Smith was unforeseen. Seymour missing time was unforeseen. Due to that, you know, you've got to extend these competitions, or keep workshopping your plan to fix it.
Everyone head over to Inside Texas where you can get all the practice notes dropping all the time. 75% off your first year. New members, definitely sign up. We would love to see you. And then go get the best preview in the world for your Texas Longhorn. Seriously, it's always smart, funny, engaging. You will walk away a smarter fan. You can get it on digital or physical copy. Everyone have a good day. Stay locked in for the rest of the shows we got coming at you. And this was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. See ya.